I've written, Virgo told me to stay where I was. I ignored her. I followed Virgo down a staircase. There was the prisoner fastened to a rock beneath the staircase. He was thin, his clothes were tattered, and he was crying. He was shivering. He wrapped his arms around himself. I felt sorry for him. He asked for water, so I gave it to him. So let's go back and see how we can improve these sentences. Virgo told me to stay where I was. Let's explain what Virgo said she was going to do. See, she said she was going to look for another exit. So let's add, while she looked for another exit. I ignored her. I followed Virgo down a staircase. We can combine these sentences if we start with an ing clause. So let's start with ignoring her, comma, I followed Virgo down a staircase. Let's add some adjectives to describe the staircase. We could have a winding iron staircase. There was the prisoner fastened to a rock beneath the staircase. We could add some more detail, so we could have there was a prisoner fastened to a rock beneath the staircase, and he was tied in chains. Let's have tied in rusty iron chains. Or perhaps let's change, rather than there was, we can start with fastened to a rock beneath the staircase, tied in rusty iron chains, was the prisoner, or rather than the prisoner, let's describe Eliot's first impressions of the prisoner. He was the most pitiful man I have ever seen. Now we've got he was thin, his clothes were tattered, and he was crying. So let's, rather than starting the sentence with he, let's start with a description of his clothes. Rather than just clothes, we could have his tattered black robe. So let's start with his tattered black robe, and to show that he was thin, we can say his tattered black robe clung to his skeletal frame. So his tattered black robe clung to his skeletal frame, and he was crying. Let's make that even more emotive. Rather than he was crying, we can say tears streamed down his face. Or to make it even clearer, let's describe his face. Streamed down his, what can we say? Or how about streamed down the tiny crevices that lined his face? He was shivering. He wrapped his arms around himself. So let's start with the ing word. Let's combine these two sentences again. We can just start with shivering, comma, He wrapped his arms around himself. Or how about adding some more detail? So shivering on the floor. And let's describe the floor to make it clear that this isn't a pleasant prison. Shivering on the cold stone floor. Shivering on the cold stone floor, he wrapped his arms around himself. Let's have for warmth and comfort. I felt sorry for him. He asked for water, so I gave it to him. We need something stronger than I felt sorry for him. Perhaps let's describe how the man looked. What would his face have looked like? He would have looked sad and desperate. So let's have the look of sadness and desperation on his face. And what can we say made me sad? We need something stronger than made me sad. Let's have made my heart ache. He asked for water. Let's have the prisoner asked for water, so I gave it to him. That's not a very good sentence. We can improve that. We can add more description. The prisoner asked for water. What might the prisoner be doing as he asks for water? Well, we know there's a rusty cup at his feet, so let's have him gesturing towards that. The prisoner asked for water, gesturing to a cup, or let's have to a rusty cup close to him. And rather than just so I gave it to him, let's have I filled it with water and placed it at his feet. So let's read this through again. Virgo told me to stay where I was while she looked for another exit. Ignoring her, I followed Virgo. Because we've already used Virgo, let's have I followed her. Ignoring her, I followed her down a winding iron staircase. Fastened to a rock beneath the staircase, tied in rusty iron chains, was the most pitiful man I have ever seen. His tattered black robe clung to his skeletal frame, and tears streamed down the tiny crevices that lined his face. Shivering on the cold stone floor, he wrapped his arms around himself for warmth and comfort. The look of sadness and desperation on his face made my heart ache. The prisoner asked for water, gesturing to a rusty cup close to him. I filled it with water and placed it at his feet.